Hi, my name is Jerry Williams. Tonight I'm going to talk to you about hypersigils and poetry. I'm also eating, check this out, pickles. Mmm, so good. And hot sauce over cottage cheese, one of the weird quirks I have. Essentially, hypersigils are these micro versions of reality. The idea is that if you create something, that whatever you create within this microcosm will ultimately end up reflecting in whatever exterior universe you're in. Now, how does this relate to poetry? Well, quite simply, poetry is the painting in your mind using words and using the least amount of words to achieve the biggest picture, so to speak. So essentially, if you really are a good poet, at least in my mind, you're supposed to be a painter of the mindscape. Perfect for paranormal and magic purposes. Now, the last book I did, The Gate of Arden, um, is a collection of poetry, but it's inspired by a specific person, but also of a specific motif too. So, how is this um, motif used in the paranormal circle? Well, simply put, um, hopefully, if you read the book and read the poetry and really get it, hopefully it'll change something within you. I've never made it a secret. Books, magic and poetry are synonymous. There's no difference. And in my mind, if you read the book, hopefully whatever you pick up from The Girl Who Stopped Time, that essential whatever she is, will affect you and hopefully affect the greater world out there. At least that's my hope. Um, so you could think of a poetry book as a spell book if you want to think about it in those terms. Now, how is this related to hypersigils? Well, certain poetry, because of the placement of the words, placement of the motifs. Right now, um, I'm actually kind of interested in poetry from the early 20th century, specifically two Irishmen. One was um, W.B. Yeats, and the other was his rival, Aliester Crowley. I think Crowley was unfairly maligned as a poet. He wasn't as good as Yeats, obviously, but he wasn't as awful as people have said he was. I think he's kind of been unfairly maligned, along with Yeats. If you talk about Yeats in academic circles, he's kind of looked down upon, especially with the occult stuff. But if you actually read any of his diaries, letters, it was very important. His idea was trying to find um, this essence from beyond. Now, the thing that I find interesting is Yeats was more of a traditionalist, and he went to the past, and I don't want to say glorified it, but definitely drew from the Irish myth. Now, on the other hand, his rival Crowley was definitely like, "Nope, let's get rid of the past. This is the modern era. We create our myths," and it doesn't matter which kind of side or camp you're on, but the fact that they were both using poetry in magic terms was definitely eye opening for me. Mm, sorry, a little pickle. So, how is this related to poetry now? Well, poetry can be many things, and it can be many art forms. At the comic book writer Alan Moore said that at the end of the day, spelling or I think it kind of mirrored Crowley too. Spelling is a form of spellcraft, hence spelling. A grimoire, a book of spells, was like grammar. So if you think about it in those terms, poetry is very much keyed in onto the paranormal realm of spellcasting hypersigils. I think the big thing is it's essentially in essence a truth, or essentially a guideline of what you seek. Um, at least in my opinion. But anytime you open a book, you are casting a spell. You're going into a world within those pages. So how does this relate to the paranormal? Well, it's quite simply some books, some works of fiction and nonfiction, there seems to be some sort of the writer Grant Morrison said words seem to be the binding agent of this process. So it's definitely worth considering. And who knows? Next time you open a book of spells or poetry, they may be the same thing.